Today I wanted to talk about active and passive mobility versus active and passive stability. So these are two different terms that we use, or I guess 4 different terms that we use pretty commonly in the rehab and physical therapy world. So today we're going to be going over what all of them mean and what kinds of implications they have when it comes to rehab and injury prevention. In this video, we're going to be talking through all the different terms, so what all these different things mean, as well as giving you an idea of where you may be lacking in your own life, so what kinds of things that you can work on in the gym, whether it's mobility, whether it's stability. So by stability, I'm talking about strengthening. So we'll get all into that in this video. My name's Kimmy Wiley. I am a physical therapist and a co-founder of Peak Pursuit Performance and Rehab here in Taylorsville, Utah. And yeah, I specialize in working with active adults and outdoor athletes and making sure that you guys are able to do all the things you want to do in a pain-free manner. So let's get into it. All right, so first we're going to start off by defining what active and passive mobility is. So when I'm talking about mobility, I'm talking about the range of motion that a certain joint can go through. So if I'm talking about passive mobility, I'm talking about how large of a range of motion that joint can go through if it has the assistance of some outside force. In this case, my passive hip flexion is how far I can bring my hip up by using my arms to pull it up as well. If that's passive mobility, active mobility is how far you can bring that joint or that body part up without using an outside force. So my active mobility of my hip is getting it to about there, right? I can still get it pretty high, but not as high as if I were to use my arms to help pull it up. So basically, active mobility is how far I can move that joint by myself just by using and activating the muscles around that joint, versus passive mobility is how far that joint can move with the use of an outside force. So using your body weight, somebody else pushing it up, using your own arms to pull something up, that kind of deal. Now we have to get into the difference between mobility and stability. So if mobility is the range of motion that our body can go through, stability is the amount of control you have over that body part. So we also break stability down into both active and passive. So when I'm talking about passive stability, I'm talking about how much the joint shape and the ligaments surrounding the joint kind of contribute to the overall control and position of that joint and that body part. Active stability, on the other hand, is how much the muscles contribute. It's how much we can control it using our brain, using our muscles to kind of control the position of the joint. So many injuries and pain complaints can be broken down into an indifference and balance between mobility and stability. So we see a lot of people in the rehab world who have either not enough mobility or too much mobility, and their stability doesn't seem to balance it out. For example, I've had a lot of ladies come into the clinic recently, ladies who do a lot of yoga, a lot of Pilates, and they have some sort of pain complaint with maybe their hip or their shoulder. And the fact is, they're asking for a lot of flexibility drills. They want to know what stretches they can do to help make it feel better. However, when we end up testing their flexibility and their range of motion, it turns out they have a lot of mobility, right? What they're actually seem to be lacking is the active stability, so the strength around the joint, the strength of the muscles that seem to protect that joint. Our job as physical therapists is to find out where those imbalances lie, where we need to maybe improve in our mobility or where we need to improve in our strength and stability. I've been working with a lot of athletes lately who do have a lot of mobility but seem to be lacking the passive stability in the joint itself. So when we are lacking that passive stability, it's important to build up the active strength and stability of the muscles around the joint so that it can move through those ranges of motion while being safe and while controlling that body part in a safe and effective manner so they can exercise pain-free. And vice versa. Sometimes there are those athletes who do a lot of strengthening and a lot of stability training, but they don't necessarily work on their mobility and they can't get into those positions that they might need to for their sport or activity. So the purpose of this video was to really give you the definitions of active and passive stability versus active and passive mobility so that you can have a better understanding of what's going on with your own body. So if you are one of those people who seems to be pretty flexible, if you're having some sort of pain, maybe it isn't due to your mobility or flexibility. Maybe it's due to the strength around the joint. And vice versa. If you're one of those athletes who is very strong and very stable, maybe your pain isn't due to being weak, but rather maybe it's due to not having the mobility requirements you need to do those motions in a pain-free manner. Pain overall is very complex and is multifactorial. So this is not by any means an end-all be-all, but these are just some easy things to think about when it comes to addressing your injuries or preventing injuries in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, share, subscribe if you found this helpful. We'd love to know what you guys think of this stuff. Check out this video if you want to see a full routine to improve your hip mobility, both active and passive. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one.